Ashley Labram, how are you? Is your voice back this week?
Yes, I'm back on.
All right, good. Good. Scott, how you doing?
So far, so good. How about you guys?
Just like you. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So, welcome everybody. I'm sure there'll be more people joining. We have a couple that got in from a flight last night about 3:40 this morning that may not be here, but which would be Kyle and Joe, but and then hopefully some others will show up. So anyway, want to welcome everybody out. Happy Friday. Let me start off with the culture piece, and I'm going to pick on Ashley Labram since she can speak to read it for us. Okay, so if you can see that, can you see that, Ashley?
I can.
Okay, great. Thank you. If you'll read that.
Yeah. So quality relationships. Happy, positive, optimistic people who support, challenge, energize, and inspire one another. Teamwork and cooperation. We trust each other to cover our backs. Respectful, kind, and fair with each other.
Great. Isn't it great to, have quality relationships? I mean, that's really, what life's about, is having those good quality relationships, and the other part is we being positive and optimistic. How many of you like being around people who are negative and sour all the time and don't ever smile? And I mean, that's really fun, isn't it?
That's my favorite part of the cold call. Are you talking
Yeah.
about gatekeepers? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's just nice to be able to be around good, positive people who are energetic about what it is we do. And as managers, as we think about what we're focused on with the training, that's our job, is to help people that we coach to be able to lift them as well. It's not about jumping down at their level. It's helping pull them up to a higher level, which is being that positive, optimistic person, and all that good stuff. So good. So I this week we're going to finish off just a couple of little things from last week on the documents, and then you had your homework to read chapter 1. I love this chapter, and we're really going to dig in a little deeper on the Q12 stuff, why it's important, and then really have a good discussion about that. So hopefully you read chapter 1 in First Break All the Rules. Don't you like that title? Break all the rules, So let me just real quickly here. I need to share this last piece here. Give me just a second. It's queued up and share. Okay, so we finished up the 4 documents last week. The last little piece that we did not talk about was, how do we implement these pieces that we've been talking about? I mean, we've spent some good amount of time going through these. This is our foundational piece. And what we talk about today really fits within that foundational piece. So how do we implement these? Number 1 is you. We implement them from our managers, our great managers, our coaches. That's how we implement. So your job as managers, as coaches, is to discuss, align, train, do the Q12 questioning, do the one-on-ones, those sorts of things. And it models top down, but it's you that are with your team, and it's you that have the opportunity and the ability to implement the documents. Okay. So, we want to be able to get documents to managers, make sure that they know and understand them. That's you. That's what we're doing this for. Okay. So that's the whole point. We want to have monthly manager meetings where we train. That's what we're here. We're training, right? Only we're doing weekly. Number 2 is we want to review and train during interviews, orientation, onboarding, integration, one-to-ones, performance reviews, smart university. Okay. And always start your meetings. Now, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody because I don't know, but if you're not starting your meetings with a culture piece, you need to do that. That's part of our process. That's how we learn them and understand them. And I know that they'll become repetitious over time, and you'll say, man, I've seen this over and over, but we want to start all of our meetings with a culture item so that we actually can really learn and dig into those pieces, have discussions around them, talk about them. We'll publish and publicize, the information. And then finally, Tribalry. We should be on Tribalry, looking at the culture pieces and other things that are going on. This is how we're going to learn. So we'll continue to have dialogue and posts in regards to these documents and the culture items. All right. Any questions on this at all? On how do we implement the things that we've talked about the last 7 weeks? Okay. Perfect. All right. So, did everybody get a chance to read chapter 1 of First Break All the Rules? And what did you think about that? Be thinking about that for just a second. What kind of jumped out at you? What did you learn in that first chapter? I love this chapter. And so we're going to talk a little bit about these Q12 and how important your role is in making this happen. And we go through the base camp stuff. So the very beginning, he shared a story. Anybody remember the story from the very first chapter about some Navy? Anybody remember that? No, nobody remembers it.
I do.
Okay.
Didn't want to be the one to somebody else.
Nope.
So in the 1700s, the British Navy, which was the preeminent navy in the world, lost most of their entire naval force. It was 4 warships, I guess that was more. I don't know how many warships they had, but just right off some islands off the coast of England in the fog. But they miscalculated because they had I think they had latitude and longitude, but they just didn't have the way to dial it in. And so he miscalculated and the admiral drove all the ships onto the rocks, and one followed after the other in the fog, and 2,000 people died.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the premier Navy in the world. The English were like the very best at being on a ship. So what caused it? Just not being able to measure correctly or accurately, the longitude. They hadn't figured out how to. They could do latitude really well, but they couldn't do longitude. And if you don't know what latitude and longitude is, if you look at a globe, one goes up and down, one goes this way, and there's measurements, all across the world when you have that globe, so that it helps navigation and so forth. But I thought it was, just really interesting that they didn't have that way, and it was a major disaster for them over that period. And so the first couple, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time in these first 2 little sections, but the whole idea behind this is in companies, it's the same way. They're not finding ways to measure accurately, what is happening within their company with their people. So how do we do that? And I think that that's really the main part of this, is that today more than ever before, if a company is bleeding people, it is bleeding value. So people have value. Each of you have value. And when we start losing people, we lose that value that goes with them. And so we have to accurately have a way of seeing how people are doing, how they fit within the company and so forth. And so that the measuring stick that we use is what? What's the measuring stick that we use?
The Q12?
Q12.
Q12, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's good. So we have to have that measuring stick. I love in the second piece where it says the measuring stick. It says, how can you measure human capital? What does a strong, vibrant workplace look like? Let's just talk about that a little bit. When you think about a strong, vibrant workplace, what does that look like to you? Let's have a little discussion. Arturo, what do you think? What does a strong, vibrant workplace look like?
I would say when there is a lot of like good energy, positivism, enthusiasm, like everyone is working towards the same goal and not putting in like excuses or trying to find the problems, but they're trying to find the solutions uh, towards how are we gonna get there together. I think that's a good, vibrant
Yeah, good.
workplace.
Any other thoughts?
I think that it is to work in an environment that allows employees to use their strengths on daily basis.
Okay, good. Yeah. Shane, you were going to say something.
Excitement. You're excited about what you do. You're excited to come to work every day, and you don't look at this as a job. You look at this as a career. You look at this as an opportunity to do better. And everyone's moving that same direction.
Yeah, exactly. Techie?
Yeah, going along what Shane was saying, it's when employees doesn't feel like, again, this isn't a job and we're not doing this just for a paycheck, but it's exciting, challenging work where everybody wants to self-improve and help one another, and we're all progressing as a unit, and that's how I think it is. So
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Jason?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring this up because I went into two different clients same day and one back to back, okay? And one company, they're two in the same industry. They're packagers, they package things. And the first company I went in, it was dead silent. There was people at their desk and nobody would look up, and everybody was just, and then finally somebody was like, huh, what do you want, type thing. And and I said, hey, I'm here to look for Brandon, and Brandon came out and he was kind of the same way. He was just kind of a negative, like, I don't want to be here, I'm just doing my job and I'm clocking in, clocking out. And we had a brief discussion with him. I went to the very next place. I went in, and I'm not kidding you, it was like night and day. The gatekeeper was friendly. She was very helpful. People were coming down the stairs saying hi to everybody, said even hi to me. I bet 4 to 5 different people said hi to me when I was in the waiting room, just to see how I'm doing, what they could help me with. I mean, it was a totally different, it was night and day. It was great. And I felt the energy from that company, and it made me have good energy. And I was like all excited about being there and, presenting what I had. So anyway, that's kind of what hit home to me.
Yeah. So that's a good, vibrant, fun workplace to be a part of. And we want to have that, in this particular section, it talked a little bit about a prism. And I don't know if you've seen prisms before, if you've seen them, hanging and the light hits them and goes through them. But what was the prism? What was that about the prism? And what does that mean to to us when we talk about prism? Any thoughts on the prism? You remember that story or that example? What is it? What is a prism? Bree, I'm going to pick on you. What's a prism, Bree?
It's kind of hard to explain, but I would say, is it like the crystal pieces that you put in like your window and it has like all the
Yeah.
cuts and yeah.
And what does it do? What does it do when light hits it? What happens?
It shines everywhere in different ways.
It
refracts the light.
Reflects.
It splits the different not
Light.
wavelengths of light, but the different what's the word, people? I know you know it. You smart people. Anyway, it splits
Oh.
the different spectrum. It splits the spectrum.
It refracts the
mhm,
light.
just like that.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
do a good job, just saying. Didn't
Is
get
anybody-
on Google quickly enough.
Is anybody confused now? No, that's right. You have all these colors come out of it, but it takes that white light and so in order to get white light, I don't know if you know this, but all those colors come together to make white. Okay, that's what happens. So from dark red to deepest purple, the only way to create white light was to draw all of these different colors together into single beams. So and this is just something, if you look at prisms and you understand it, but that's how it works. So in order to get white light, all these colors have to come together. So what does that mean for our company? How does that relate to our company? In order to get white light, all these colors have to come together. Kyle, what does that mean to you?
Unity, working together, unifying ideas, sharing, challenging each other. And I think different perspectives just bring synergy and much better ideas, and that's what I think it means.
Yeah, so we have like 17, 18 people on this call, all of us with a different color that we're, emanating. And we bring it all together, like Kyle said, for that cohesiveness. I love, there's a little paragraph in here. It says, if you can bring all of these core elements together in a single place, that's us right here, then you will have created the kind of workplace that can attract and keep most talented people and keep the most talented people. So if we bring this together, we build that workplace that we're talking about in order for us to have that. So our ability to, to do that, part of it has to be the way we measure. And the great thing about, Gallup, when they did this, these guys interviewed 1 million people. They had 100 million questions. And I just can't imagine. I mean, that's a lot. This isn't like one of those surveys where they go, we just surveyed, and here's the poll. And we're like, well, how many people did you survey? Well, 10, okay, well, that doesn't give us enough of a broad thing. These guys, interviewed 1 million people. And the thing they came up with was the Q12. Now we've gone through the Q12 questions, but I just want to, as we go through this today, show you the importance of what we have here. How many of you have done Q12 when you were working for another company? Anybody? Have you ever even heard of it before? Yeah. So companies flounder when it comes to measuring what we're talking about today. And the Q12 is really where we get into this. And what it does. So I'm going to hit a couple of notes that I have, and if you guys, want to jump in on any of this, but they do capture the most information and the most important information. 12 questions, just 12 questions, okay? And we capture all of this. So they're easy, they're simple, we should be asking them, we should be scoring. What kind of a score do you want when you ask these questions? What's our goal?
Should be 60, but like, you know, 5, you want all 5s, right? So that
Yeah.
totals up to 60, right?
We want 5 score on all of these. I'm going to give you an assignment at the end, and we're going to look at how, you know, how those scores are working. But if we will use this, it's just an extremely powerful tool. And so, you know, if it engages people, it helps them understand, it gives them a way of looking at our company and the things that we're doing with a different type of atmosphere, experience, all of that. And it's not just the same old, same old. The outcome for this, which I liked as well, was productivity, profit, retention, and customer service. So we're going to see an improvement in productivity, profit, retention, and customer service. That's everything that we're striving for, right? You know, profitability, productivity, retention, and customer service. So, who is the most important part of this Q12?
The manager.
The manager. The manager is key. The manager is key. So I thought it was interesting as you looked at the case study. We'll come back to some other things, but when you saw the case study, what kind of jumped out at you on that case study? What happened in the case study? There was 2 different stores. What happened?
That didn't do like the Q12 for all these different stores. It's the same company, but different stores, and they all scored very extremely different.
Yeah. They had 2 specifically, store A and store B, and the differences were dramatic. Okay. They were dramatic. And what was their final conclusion? Was it the store that was bad? Was it the product that was bad?
It wasn't the company as a whole, because the company had the same culture across the board, but the difference between the 2 stores was the managers.
It was the manager. And we have the managers right here in front of us. Everybody right here. This is what it's about. So this is really what we are talking about, is our ability to use this Q12 to really help us as a team, as a manager, and how important it is when somebody leaves. If you remember reading stuff through the documents and some of the other things, when somebody leaves our company, do they leave because of the company, or do they leave because of the manager? It's the manager. Absolutely. So this is our measuring piece. This tells us that people leave managers, not companies. So you have a vital role. You're perhaps the most vital role in the company as we talk. That's why we're spending this time on the training, so that we can help each of us to be better and understand the importance that you have within this company. And again, if you have a turnover problem, look first to your managers. In a basketball team, if you have issues, you look first to the coach. The coach doesn't play the game. He's not out on the floor, but they always fire the coach. Okay. The manager is the same way. If you have turnover problems, you want to look first to your managers and be able to start working on that. So as a manager, and this, I thought this was, I put this in red. As a manager, you guys think about this. Tell me what you think. if you want to know what you should do to build a strong and productive workplace, securing fives to these 6 items, we'll talk about them, is an excellent place to start. What are the 6 items?
The first 6 of the Q12, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. We don't want to move on until we've got these first 6. So what do you think about that? This is your job. If, as a manager, if you want to know what you should do to build a strong and productive workplace, secure 5 on these 6 items. Do you have 5s? When you interviewed your people, did you have all 5s? Or did you have somebody that maybe was a 4 or, you know, a 3 in some of their discussions? And then did you go deeper with, you know, how that feels? So, so the first 6 pieces are, number 1, I know what is expected of me at work. Do your people know what's expected of them, what the outcomes should be at their job? Have you explained that? Do you, as an individual, know and what the expectations of you are? Or is there some confusion? Or do sometimes you go, I'm not quite sure. Is this my job? Is there something else I should be doing? What are the expectations? Ashley Hosang, what do you think are some of your expectations with your job?
Well, first of all, to meet my KPIs, surely to meet that's number 1. Second, to continue doing my training to be a good manager, not only manager of a team, but being a highly effective performance person, to be able to manage my time as well.
Okay. Good. And I think that we've got to be very specific about what our expectations are. You know, now I'm not going to ask this, but I could say, okay, Belinda, is that right? Is that exactly, or is there gaps? Now, again, I'm not asking you to necessarily answer that, but are there gaps there? Is that exactly the expectations that you have for Ashley? So as managers, we need to look at those things and say, yeah, okay, so you just explained that, but gosh, there was a missing piece. I didn't hear this part. So clearly I need to make that more clear to you that this is part of the expectation or the outcome. You know, now we could dig a little bit more, Ashley, and say, well, what are the KPIs? You know, what are those KPIs?
Of course.
And kind of dig down into that and make sure that you, from the employee side and from Belinda, necessarily from the leader side, are you on the same page with that? That's really important. So number 2, I think is good. I have the materials and equipment I need to do the right work. You know, ask yourself, do I have a computer? Do I have does my laptop work? Do I have the materials in my office? Do I have the material as a salesperson? You know, what are the things that you need to be successful? And we'll get into this a little bit more as we get into the camp stuff, but I just think that, you know, foundationally, these first 2 are so important. They're really important. So here's another paragraph I thought was great. It is better to work for a great manager in an old-fashioned company than for a terrible manager in a company offering an enlightenment, employee-focused culture. Managers are the key. Okay, they're the key. There was they had another story about a lady that was, her name was Sharon, and she was a graduate of Stanford and Harvard and worked you know, at American Express and so on. Do you remember that story? She had a manager. She came on board with this company, and within a year she left. Do you remember what she said about the manager?
She said he wasn't a bad
Yeah.
person. He was just a bad manager.
Yeah, and he was insecure. Yeah, he was
bad manager.
insecure. He was very insecure.
Mhm. Somebody else?
And also he competes with his own people. So as a manager, you shouldn't be competing with your team. So that was
Yeah.
something else, you know, and he was always boasting about his high style of living. So he was trying to look good, and he wouldn't listen either. He was a poor listener.
Yes. Draining the company. And he wasn't a bad person. He was just a bad manager, you know? So how many of those, do we have? What's out there? What's happening? So again, we want to be thinking along this line as we talked about this. I want you to understand as we go through each of these little segments in this chapter, how important you are to this whole piece. Managers trump companies. Managers trump companies. Okay. Perhaps the best thing any leader can do, now listen to this, to drive the whole company toward greatness is first, hold each manager accountable for how his employees respond to these 12 items. And second, help each manager know what actions to take to deserve strongly agree responses from his employees. Perhaps the best thing any leader can do. Do you get that? Are we doing that? Do you have, so here's the thing I'm going to have you do as homework this next week. You all talked with your team. Now, so maybe you didn't talk with all of them, but I want you to talk with all of them in one-on-ones with the Q12, specifically these first 6. And I want you to get your score. Okay. I want to know what the score is. So based on the number of people you have and the six questions, we're going to start with those 6. Let's find out what the score is. Okay. And make sure that they're honest and open about that. But if we really want to drive the whole company towards greatness, we have to understand that this is one of our major goals is to get our employees to respond to these 12 items and give us scores of 5. And if they're not at a 5, then we need to get them to a 5. How do we make that happen? Okay. So next week, I want you to talk with your people and let's find out what the scores are. And this is just a good baseline for us. If we're low, then let's figure out ways to make that better. Any questions on that? That's your piece, okay? So where do we start? We start by climbing the mountain. I love this piece. This little section is really good. And there's an order to these 12 items, which we just discussed, the foundational piece, so we need to think about this I thought this was a great analogy in the form of climbing a mountain. And I don't know, have any of you ever climbed like big stuff, like big mountains, and you had to hit certain points, and maybe you stayed overnight at a certain point and you had to acclimate and so forth. I love hiking and I love climbing mountains, and I've been, up about 11,000 feet on a single trip. I haven't been really any higher, 11 or 12,000. I can't remember. Bald Mountain up by Camas. I've done that when my wife and I, and I didn't have to acclimate, although I should have. I was definitely out of breath by part way up, but we did make it to the top of the mountain, and it was great, a great feeling. But have any of you ever climbed bigger mountains than that? Yeah, Jason?
So
What?
yeah, it's funny you bring this. When I was reading this, I was like, yeah, this totally reminds me. I was out of shape. I was overweight, all these things, and I wanted to get healthy. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to start climbing this mountain, and the peak is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Lewis Peak, but the peak was Lewis Peak. So every day I would make a goal to myself that, hey, I'm going to go up 20 minutes up, 20 minutes back, and then I'm going to go up 30 minutes, and then I'm going to go 30 minutes back, 40, and I kept going, and it took me a few weeks to actually reach the peak. Just doing that time and time again, but it was actually taking those steps first and then reviewing those steps as I went up. And I got further and further, the more and more I hiked to get to the peak. And so that's what, it's the same principle here. You got to do the steps first before you can actually reach the peak.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a process.
Yeah.
And, people that are climbing like Everest and, I don't know all the mountain peaks, but there's some big ones. But this is, you can die on the mountain. Even people who are physically trained can die on the mountain, So you have to do certain things to train to get there. And this is what we're talking about. So if you guys have your book, on my book, it's page 51. I don't know, because I'm doing a Kindle. But it should be Base Camp. Can you find Base Camp? Is that the same page number as mine?
It's page 49.
49, okay. So go to Base Camp, and let's talk a little bit about that. Let's see. Jason, I'm just going to have you continue since you were talking about this. Can you read that first paragraph for us?
Yeah, on what do I get on Base Camp?
Yes.
When you first start a new role, your needs are pretty basic. You want to know what is going to be expected of you. How much are you going to earn? How long will you commute? How long will your commute be? Will you have an office, a desk, even a phone? At this stage, you are asking, what do I get from this role? Of the 12, these two fundamental items measure Base Camp. 1, I know what is expected of me at work. 2, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right.
Yes, thank you. So Shane, you're probably the newest on here when it comes to starting with the company. Did you have that? Did you have those questions? Did you think, what am I going to get? What's happening here?
Yes.
Did you? Yeah. So
yeah, it's quite overwhelming at first. It still is. I'm a month in, and it's still a bit overwhelming to learn everything and to understand everything. And really, what it comes down to it is to find the time to get it all accomplished.
But those first things when you start, right? Those are the questions you're going to ask, like what do I need to do? What's expected of me? Where am I going to camp? Where am I going to go? What area do I have? So you're learning and you have these questions. We can't go into all of these other Q12 questions without understanding that first one. Okay. I know what is expected of me at work. And you may think that the people that you manage completely know what's expected of them. But you have got to dig into that because you can't really go any further without that. That's a foundation. They're going to be confused. You're going to throw all kinds of stuff at them, and they don't really care. They just want to know, like, what's my territory? What do you want me to do as far as the number of calls or number of needs audits or number of recruits I got to call every day or whatever. We have to know and understand. And next, do I have the resources? Some of you have computers from the company, some of you don't. Okay. But what are the resources, at your office? Do you have them? Do you have a printer? Do you have a copy machine? Do you have the resources to fulfill the job that you have? That's really an important piece. Okay. So if we can get those two in line with everybody, then we can move on to the next piece, which is Camp 1. So let's see. Mariah, are you still there, Mariah?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Will you read Camp 1? What do I give?
Is
Will
it
just
in the book?
it's in the book. Do you have it?
No, I'm actually traveling and my bag is in the trunk of the car with my book.
Okay.
I forgot to grab it. So I'm so sorry, guys. I don't have my book on me.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. Ashley Labram, will you read that first paragraph?
Camp 1, what do I give? You climb a little higher, your perspective changes. You start asking different questions. You want to know whether you are any good at the job. Are you in a role where you can excel? Do other people think you're excelling? If not, what do they think about you? Will they help you? At this stage, your question centers around what do I give? You are focused on your individual contribution and other people's perceptions of it.
How many of you have had people that you lead or manage come to you and ask about, whether you're doing a good job? Am I doing okay? Can I do better? Is there other things? What do you as a manager think about me? How am I doing? Can you give me feedback? Can you tell me something? How many of you have had that happen where people have come to you and asked those questions? Okay. So this is what they're doing. They're wanting to know, what do I give? What is, my side? How do I, so again, these next 4 questions, how valuable are they? At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Do your people, I mean, seriously, do your people have the opportunity to do what they do best every day? Not all day, but every day. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. Boy, how easy is that to give praise? How easy is that to tell somebody they're doing a good job? Maria, what do you think about that? How easy is that to give praise, and do you get it and do you give it?
I don't think it's hard at all. It's very easy to say, hey, you're doing a great job. It's one of those things that don't cost anything at all. And Kyle, he's really good at making sure that he's like, hey, you're doing a great job. You're awesome. Thank you for doing this. So I have a really cool manager. So
Good. Good. Belinda, do you do a pretty good job of giving praise?
Yeah, I'd say I'm okay. I can do better.
But I hear, stuff all the time. So I know that you do that, and that's really good. And that's kind of why I picked on you.
No, I do, and I try, but my head moves very fast. And because of the way the brain is wired here, I know that I miss opportunities where I can praise more. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we can all improve. I mean, that's part of what we strive for is, a better improvement. But giving praise, telling people that they're doing a good job, whatever small little thing or large thing, it doesn't have to be grandiose. It's just, hey, way to go. That you put that paper on that copier just right, and look how good it came out. Okay. I mean, simple things, but find reasons to praise people within your group. Let them know that you care. So which leads right into the next one, which is my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. Gosh, there are so many companies, you guys, that I've worked for in the past, managers I've worked for, that could care less. Like, just have some sense about you to care about people. Ask them how they're doing. Find out what their life's like. Are they struggling? Ask them about those things. They seem to care about me as a person. Gosh, who doesn't want that? I just think that's so valuable. And that next one, there is someone at work who encourages my development. Are you encouraging development in people? when we're talking about training, when we're talking about reading books together, are we encouraging those things and working together for development? The other day, Jason was mentioning the other day on the call, the sales call, you said something about, this is why I joined this company, and you've never seen another company like this. In what respect, Jason?
That actually cared about me and had culture pieces and values and valued what I did, and that's where there's been no company like that ever.
Yeah, Shane?
All the companies that I've left have been because I became a number. Because I was no longer felt as a valued employee and part of the family, whether it was SOS, whether it was Premier. It wasn't those organizations that I left, it was the companies that acquired them, and you no longer have that culture. You no longer have that feeling of that you're a valued part of the team, and that's why I left.
Yeah.
I think it's so
Yeah,
important
so
that
if
we're
that's
doing.
happening.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Shante. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's so important that we're doing this training because I've had similar experiences. I'm actually here at Smart because the last company I worked for fumbled on Camp 1. I was in a position and I had a great experience. I loved the company, the culture. I was the only employee that lived in the state of Utah. They were out of Texas. So I was kind of on an island, but I never felt like I was on an island. And the reason was because my manager was fantastic. And we were all the way on Camp 3. And then some things changed with internal clients and they shuffled some things around and I started reporting to someone different. And that manager never even reached out and welcomed me to the team or introduced herself to me. And so for the last, 6 months of my employment there, I felt like I was on an island. It completely took all of the satisfaction out of my job, what I thought was going to be my career. It completely just derailed my plans and my excitement. So I think a lot of companies fumble on Camp 1 when it gets to that piece. And that really does come down to the manager because the company could be doing so great. You can be in love with the company, but even internally, some things can just get shuffled around and you report to a different manager and you can have a completely different experience. And then, unfortunately leave the company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've all experienced that in some respects, I'm sure. I've had great managers that I loved and was highly productive with those managers. And then somebody else steps into that role, just destroys everything. And I end up, going and finding another place to camp. So yeah, thank you. Camp number 2, I just the very first thing, do I belong here? That's the question that is being asked in this particular thing. So as we look at these questions, at work, my opinions seem to count. Again, I brought this up. Shane brought this up to me when he first started. I just, I have ideas and I just want to know that, my ideas count, or my opinion. I'm like, they will. In this company, they will count. Okay. You have an opportunity to share those opinions and we will listen. It doesn't mean you're going to get your way every time, but your opinions count. Okay. Ted, what do you think about, do everybody's opinions here count to you as the owner and CEO and COO and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, they do. They do a great deal because one person doesn't know everything. Number 2, one person can't see everything. And one person doesn't make the right decisions always, or maybe even a lot of the time, you can do best thing. I think is your best. It's probably to be an integrator, to say, I can hear all the different thoughts and ideas. These are the people where with boots on the ground. I'm not out meeting customers. I'm not out talking to the recruiters. I'm not out, facing the challenges that people are doing that. And so I need to listen now. And sometimes we can just make a decision as a group. Even then, I don't think we can pull all, let's say we have 65 employees. I can't pull all 65 employees together 5 times a day every time we need to make a decision and go through the process. It would probably take us, just if we said, when should we have the company meeting? That would probably take an hour and a half to get the whole company to get down to complete unity of decision around something like that, to say, when should we hold the company meeting? So it's very ineffective and inefficient. Maybe not ineffective. Yeah, it's both ineffective and inefficient to try to do everything by consensus every step of the road. We have to just have this chain of command to say, okay, who can make a decision here about this? And so we need to have managers and other supervisors making decisions on the fly. But hopefully those are understanding the nature of the landscape and the people, and then the same thing for the managers, and then same thing for maybe executives, and then same thing for me. And so at some point, a leader or a manager do have to make some decisions, and they just have to go with that. And hopefully, though, that it's aligned with the people so that everybody can get behind it. And so there is this balance of like, I have to just, at some point, I have to just make a decision. One, let's say we just can't come to an agreement on stuff. And then it's okay. Okay, well, then I'm going to have to make a decision and move forward. And then we'll see whether people can get behind that or not. And other times it's because we just can't take the time to get consensus on everything. So there does have to be people making decisions, and it's a big and, that those should be done not in a vacuum, but in an environment where we have all this information bubbling up all the time, and I'm factoring that in. And so I greatly value everybody's input and the thoughts that they have and the voices that they have. We all need to have a voice. And you see the difference, like in a choir, like some people on the planet have an incredible voice and can sit there without an instrument or anything and just sing and sing very beautifully. Most people don't. But now you add an instrument to somebody singing and it sounds better. Well, what if you bring in 50 voices? Now, even someone that doesn't maybe have an amazing voice by themselves, but blended in with this whole orchestra and choir of voices, it becomes very powerful. And so I think each of our talents and our voices and our views and our perspectives blended together with all of us becomes powerful, but also becomes beautiful. And so we do need all of our different perspectives. And if we were all just Teds, if I only hired people that saw the world exactly like I did, then it would be a very monotone, monotonous kind of symphony. It would not have the richness of our differing perspectives and different backgrounds, different worldviews, different cultures, every different thing about us that makes us wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. And that's the great thing, now not everybody's going to get, the leader's ear or the head of the company's ear. There's times when that's going to happen, and we'll have experiences like that. But within your realm, like if a recruiter is doing their job and they have a great idea and they say, hey, if we tried this, I think we could probably improve our recruiting mechanisms. So those are the types of things. I mean, within that world and within that realm, people should have their opinions count. I think that's so important. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. Gosh, when we read the culture items and the mission, the vision, the purpose, the culture, the values, I mean, we should be, thinking this is fantastic, because we have that. We have those things. We can share them with the people that we work with. Question 9 is, my associates or fellow employees are committed to doing quality work. Remember, we want to work with other, fantastic people in the company, high performers. We want to be elite performers and work with other elite performers. And this is a tricky question. I have a best friend at work. Sometimes that's hard to explain. What does that mean? Does that mean I have a best friend that, I hang out with, we go grab dinner, all that kind of stuff? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It can, but I have friends here at work. Again, I mentioned this before. I consider all of you friends. And I have others that I'm, a little bit closer to. We have, conversations, deep conversations. Kyle and I used to spend every month going to Atlanta, and it was 4 hours of fantastic conversation on the way to Atlanta and back. We built that friendship there. So I think that's really important. Maria?
I was just gonna say that when you work outside of a cubicle, kind of like we do, we're not like a call center where you're staring at a cubicle 24/7. You have to kind of have friends at work. I couldn't imagine working here and not talking to Ashley or Belinda or Shantae, we may not hang out after hours, or, I may not know what's going on in their life like other people, but I consider them family because I spend more time with them than I do with my own kids sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, you spend a lot of time. Thank you, Maria. That was great. Yes. Was it Mariah? Did you have a question or your hand up?
No, I kind of just wanted to add on to like what Maria just said.
Yeah.
And I think the really big differentiator, at least for me, between like colleagues and friends at work, sorry, is really like reliability and trust. I really think that when you have coworkers and colleagues that you build genuine reliability and trust with, I think that's what makes them friends. Not necessarily like going out to dinner and all those kind of things. And so I think Maria hit the nail on the head. That's kind of what that means for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had relationships. I started in this industry many years ago, met a guy that was a competitor of mine, and then ended up working at the same company as him at SOS. And he and I became good friends. I mean, we do go out sometimes and have lunch. We don't hang out a lot, but I consider him one of my best friends. I can call him, he can call me anytime, and we talk once in a while and share ideas. He's not in the industry anymore, left that years ago, but you know, this was a long time ago, and this was somebody that I worked with, and we developed a friendship that's lasted for many, many, many years, and I'm sure we'll be friends until the day we die. So those are the types of things, and I think that we develop those at work, and we have those opportunities. Um, Camp number 3, how can we all grow? I just wanted to cover this one. It talked a little bit about the difference between invention and innovation. And when we get to this camp, that we're going to start working on the innovation side. And innovation really is like invention is more of the novelty. Innovation is novelty that can be applied, which I loved that definition. I thought that was great. So as we get into this camp 3, we have the last 2 questions. In the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. I hope everybody has had that discussion with somebody about the progress of their work in the last 6 months. Okay. And if you haven't talked with somebody about progress, then, for a long time, then you should be doing that. And the final one is this last year, I've had the opportunity to work, to learn and to grow at work, to learn and to grow. So all of you are here, with this opportunity to learn and to grow in this thing. Again, all of our people should have that opportunity, so that we can, really get where we need to. I highlighted this. If you cannot answer positively to all these earlier items, then you will find it almost impossible to apply all your new ideas. Man, so we really need to make sure that we're hitting on those, earlier questions, that we are clear about that. You as a manager in this chapter, very clearly, the summit, your focus is clear. Okay. Your focus is clear. What you need to do, is very clear. You're in an extremely precarious position. You have the ability to work with people and change lives, to coach and develop. and to get them past, the bad spots. Talk about mountain sickness and, the way to overcome that. Again, mountain sickness is one of those things, almost like if you've been diving, it's kind of the same way, just opposite. But, your blood, mountain sickness can kill you if you don't get down to a lower elevation very quickly. So our job, again, as we think about this, as we talked about this chapter, as you read it, and we've discussed it today, what is your job? What is your job as a manager? This is your question. I'm asking somebody to respond. What is your job? Yeah.
I can respond to this, and I want to put it in context of this Q12 and the questions that we're going to be asking for the homework. First things first, to really get the good data, we need to make sure that our teams know that it's a safe place, that the information that they can provide is safe information, to not be afraid to tell us how they truly feel, because that's the only way that we're truly going to get to 5s on everything, is to really understand and let them know that what they say really is going to make a difference, and they're not going to be reprimanded for anything that they say.
Yeah. It has to be a safe place. Thank you, Shane.
I want to share my thoughts on this as well. To me,
Please.
I take my role very seriously as a leader, and to me, it has 2 fundamental hats, which is, first of all, that it's my responsibility to be not a good, but an excellent steward for the company, so that I can protect the company's integrity as a business and everything, so that we can provide a secure environment for our employees and for the team, that gives them job security. A. B, I feel a very, very strong sense of responsibility towards each person in the organization, not just my team, but towards each person, because I feel that we as leaders have put people in positions, and we said to them, here, this is your position. We think you can do a good job. And I think that it's our responsibility to ensure that we give this individual every chance to succeed, with support, with tools, with training, with understanding, with coaching. And the exact opposite of what Shante experienced with that company when her new manager came in, where she had radio silence. And I think that whenever somebody leaves the company, whether they do it voluntarily or involuntarily, I always evaluate myself critically and say, what did I do to fail this person? If I did, I normally don't, but I always look inside first and say, okay, before we let someone go or whatever, what do we owe this person? How can we give this person the opportunity to succeed? No one goes out and says, I'm going to go fail today. That's right. We all want to succeed, and we look to our leaders and those who we consider mentors to help us get to that point of success. And it's very important to me as a leader that I meet that requirement and don't fail anybody on that item. And I have failed in my career, and it's been horrible with that. And I try not to make that mistake.
But like you said earlier, we can always improve and we can be better. And that's fantastic. And it ties with these last 2 pieces, you guys. Great managers take aim at base camp and camp 1. Great managers take aim at base camp and camp 1. So what you can do right now is take aim at base camp and camp 1 with your people, those first 6 questions, and securing 5s to these items is one of your most important responsibilities. You probably didn't know that. Now you do. It's one of your most important responsibilities is to get 5s on those first 6, base camp and camp 1. Okay. That is really, really powerful. And that tells you very clearly, this is your responsibility, one of your most important responsibilities. We're out of time. I want you to do one thing while I pull up the agenda for next week. Could you write down at least one item, just one item that stood out to you today? You can write 3, but at least one right now that you can say, gosh, this jumped out at me. This just made a whole difference in studying this chapter. So while you're writing that one item, at least, John, I haven't heard from you today. You've been playing FBI guy. You've been really quiet and silent. And so, can you tell us what one item kind of stood out to you today?
Well, this last one that we just talked about, and you just said, is you probably didn't know this, but great managers aim for base camp in camp 1. Those first 6 items, trying to get 5 on those first 6 items, and then you can grow, the other 6, and you can then focus on those. But you need to get the baseline first. And I know we're all going through this together, and I've never heard of the Q12 before this company. So for me, everything's new, and I'm learning a lot about it. But the fact that right now you just pointed that out, you probably didn't know this, and it actually goes into our Q12, doesn't it? I know what is expected of me at work. It speaks to that, because now we know as a group, as a managing group, that the first thing we need to focus on is the most basic thing, trying to get people, trying to get 5s for all these 6 questions at the beginning.
Yeah.
Great managers focus on that. And it's funny because you would think great managers focus on the summit, right? But if you cannot get to base camp, and if you cannot acclimate and make it to camp 1, you're not going to reach the summit.
No.
So
you're going to die.
Exactly. You're going to die. So aim at the base camp, aim at your first camp, and then you continue the expedition to the summit.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that stood out for me the most.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. So next week, we're going to have the pleasure of hearing from Belinda, talking about one-to-ones, how to do a one-to-one, and so on. I need you to read chapter 7 of First Break All the Rules. We'll delve into chapter 7 a little bit on the next one as well. But for this one, just read it, and then you'll have it done for the following one as well. But we're gonna, Belinda's gonna be. She's been preparing for a while, so that's good. And so, but just again, read chapter 7, First Break All the Rules. Kyle, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I did want to just I left something in the chat here. It's a great little article. I'd recommend we all just look over that and recognize what impact we have on people. It's titled "Managers Have Major Impact on Mental Health: How to Lead for Well-Being," and it suggests that 70%, the study suggests that 70% of people say their manager has more impact on their mental health than their therapist or doctor, and is equal to the impact of their partners at home. So I just thought that was a great eye-opening article. Look into it. It ties very well into about everything that we're talking in this meeting here. So that's all.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sending that out, by the way. So download that, and that's really good for us. That's all ties together. You guys, thanks for your participation and for your comments about things. This is such an important piece. Please don't overlook it. Please take this seriously. You know, we have a great opportunity right now, and so don't forget your homework assignment, which is reach back out to your people on the first 6 questions. You know, what's the score? And if you're not a leader of people right at the moment, if you don't have a group, then look at yourself and say, how do I score? Okay. How do I score myself in these first 6 so that we can start getting baselines for that? So that's your assignment. We'll talk about that next week. And then Belinda will be sharing some good information with us. So very good. You guys have a great weekend. And thank you so much for being here. We love and appreciate all of you, and keep up the good work. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.